Petitions. The member from Oshawa.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and it is my privilege to bring this petition to the Legislature on behalf of probation and parole officers across Ontario. Supporting the inclusion of probation and parole officers in presumptive PTSD legislation under the Workplace Safety and Insurance Act to the Legislative Assembly of Ontario. Whereas Bill 163 provides for WSIB benefits for a select few first responders diagnosed with PTSD, and whereas MCSCS probation and parole officers and MCYS probation officers have been specifically excluded from Bill 163, despite overwhelming evidence that these frontline officers are exposed to primary trauma, secondary trauma, and vicarious trauma, often resulting in PTSD diagnoses, and whereas the rates of assaults, threats, and intimidation of corrections staff have increased by 2,750% in the period from 2009 to 2014, and whereas Manitoba's Bill 35, Workers' Compensation Amendment Act, includes probation and parole officers, and whereas the Ministry of Community Safety and Correctional Services has neither programs for the prevention of PTSD nor employee assistance programs, EAP, nor wellness programs that specifically support and treat those workers diagnosed with PTSD or like symptoms, we, the undersigned probation officers and probation and parole officers, petition the Legislative Assembly of Ontario as follows: that the Legislative Assembly of Ontario shall include probation officers and probation and parole officers in presumptive PTSD legislation under the Workplace Safety and Insurance Act, and that the Ministry of Community Safety and Correctional Services creates programs aimed at PTSD prevention, along with employee assistance programs and wellness programs that address the mental health needs and occupational stressors related to trauma exposure. Mr. Speaker, I wholeheartedly support this petition, sign my name to it, and send it with Paige Christina.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Further petitions?